Alex Answer here. It is February 20th, 2019. Today we're going to continue looking at the Encyclopedia of World Mythology. In this video, with a very specific focus on all things Celtic. We're just going to go over a few basics here as we get warmed up. A little bit of my own biological history in this body. Currently living off the grid, tapping into deeper levels of knowledge in a day and age where there's a lot of manufactured racial tensions that I truly believe in my heart come from an evil place in this world that's beyond human. And as we look at the world of world mythologies, we see the story of good and evil being told again and again and again. And I think some people miss some of the larger, deeper truths behind their own teachings, their own ancestors, the knowledge within. When I look at my grandmother and the Lewis bloodline, I've been so consumed with being defensive with regarding the other side or the father side, but looking deeper at the things that I'm feeling within my own dreams and throughout my own childhood. And the idea of the pulling the sword or the stone, all things Arthurian, and just wondering my whole life, what is it with this type of a sense of a lineage that I feel a deep connection to. And I haven't actually studied it or looked at it until recently. And then also asking myself, why is there such anger now in the world with people that maybe only have a certain percentage of that line mixed in with something else? And I just look at my own imagination, how I just naturally gravitate to this deep-seated conversation about the battle of good and evil. What is the truth? How do we see things as they are? Not be hypnotized by the fallen world, to be the insusceptible, to be our own superhero, to have that superpower psychologically, to see the truth. And I begin to suspect for a long, long time there's a reason why some of us are demonized more than others. And it has something to do with accessing some of the dormant DNA. For others, they're accessing that DNA, but it could also be a dark expression of it. It could be a crusader expression of it. While they're confusing the light side for the dark and the light for the light, having it backwards on what side they should be on to begin with. So there's a calling that I feel to speak to the dominant Celtic bloodlines of the audience. And we will come back and talk about the Germanic bloodline and its connection to Norse mythology. And as we will also continue how some people are trying to take advantage of ancestral programming in today's day and age and turn us dark instead of help us evolve to something lighter. So let us begin and find out what page we're on. So we're skipping through Sumerian stuff. We're skipping through a number of things because some of the stuff you've already heard of. You've heard of Greek mythology quite a bit, some of you, Rome. But here we are in the Celts. And I've also been asking myself why there's been a strong connection between myself and Celts more than other bloodlines. People that have been fans, people that have been friends. There's also been other interesting bloodlines, Rh negative, others, other interesting types of a soul connection with other interesting individuals that can see more than the average individual. People that are activated in their DNA on a positive sense, but I've also seen the frightening form of it. And I've asked myself, where does this frightening form come from? The evil spirit that has no empathy. The people that are led by symbols. So symbols can be used for good or evil. One could look at this symbol and take it to a particular place like Dion Fortune in her Magical Battle of Britain, which you can read the book for free. And I suggest you do, because I'm going to come back and talk to you more about her and the Magical Battle of Britain. The supernatural battle of light and dark taking place between people practicing metaphysics in the UK during the time in which the Nazis were on their way. Then there are people that will also take this cross and use it in a street fight as simply a protective amulet as they hit a dude upside the head with brass knuckles. Is it good? Is it evil? Or is it another sigil that they're using for their agenda? Wake up, America, because they hypnotize with symbols. Because of the ancestral programming. So it is time that we look at our ancestral programming. For if they're going to use symbols that are within our DNA and use those symbols against us and put them on their planes of destruction and put them on their shields of empire, then we need to know why these symbols speak to us. And so, yeah, there's going to be a shift from my free flow to actual reading. There's a snowstorm outside, and I'm using my own body heat to keep me warm. No heater, ladies and gentlemen. It is 0 degrees outside. Sometimes I think the combination of my genetics has enabled me to survive like this. And I think the world's been told a lie about value, inferior, things of that nature. It's as if the whole world is a lie, and we're here to learn to wake up from the nightmare, one day at a time. That's not just a slogan for AA, folks. We're taking this escape from the matrix one day at a time, one lifetime at a time. The Celts. Introduction. The Celts were among the great founding peoples of Europe. Centuries before the time of the Roman Empire, Celtic kingdoms occupied much of Europe north of the Alps. In the period of maximum expansion between the 5th and 3rd centuries BCE, their world stretched from Ireland and parts of Spain in the west to central Turkey in the east. It used to be thought that the Celts invaded Western Europe sometime in the 2nd millennium BCE. The less dramatic but more likely view is that the peoples who had inhabited the area for thousands of years gradually adopted the characteristics we call Celtic. The Celts were not a united group with a self-conscious ethnic identity. They did not form an empire. Their world was a mosaic of richly diverse chiefdoms and extended families linked by a little more than common language and culture. Nevertheless, these apparently disorganized peoples dominated Europe for 500 years before they were conquered by the Romans and later driven to the edges of the known world to Ireland, Wales, Scotland, Cornwall, and Brittany. The Celts in history. Celtic roots in the Hallstatt culture, which extended across Central Europe, became between the 13th and 5th centuries BCE. In the 5th century BCE, the Hallstatt princedoms were succeeded by wealthy Celtic-speaking warrior societies from the north, which developed the material culture called La Tène, the pinnacle of Celtic achievement. Around 400 BCE, Celts began pouring over the Alps to settle in northern Italy. And I'm going to move forward just a little bit, just get a little bit more history between the Romans and the Germans and others. The pagan Celts left no written records. They passed down their laws, traditions, and religious beliefs by word of mouth. Consequently, our knowledge of their culture is based on the testimonies of classic Greek and Roman observers, archaeological remains, and later Irish and Welsh texts. At first, the ancients did not understand the customs of the Celts, and later they needed excuses to conquer and civilize them. So their portrayal of these people are fearsome, undisciplined barbarians who gloried in war and indulged in discussing rituals is not reliable. Some of their observations, however, have been confirmed by archaeology. I'm not adding too much to some of the things that are here. And I'm focused on getting you some of the most important cliff notes, having already read this chapter once already. The Irish and Welsh texts were written down much later by monks in post-Roman Christian settings, as they relate entirely to geographical areas which were peripheral to pre-Roman Celtic Europe. As such, their use is limited in helping us to form a true picture of the mythology of the pagan Celts. Religious festivals. The eve of February 1st was called Imbolc, Imbolk, and it was sacred to the fertility goddess, Bridget. And it was marked the coming into milk of the, I'm going to spell that EWES. And it was subsequently taken over by the Christians. Okay, so we are, and it got into some much more interesting stuff. Fire, the great Celtic bonfire festivals, were an acknowledgement of fire as the earthly counterpart of the sun. So the other thing that comes up in this book on mythology, because one of the things that I specialize in from my free flow to things that I've investigated on my own is things regarding the sun. Okay, this is what I'm adding in. And so there's various things that I'm looking for with regards to this book on world mythology, and it's things that sound like the archons, the spiritual parasites that are waging war on the human species. It's things that give us teachings and knowledge about exiting this world, what the most important virtues are. It's things that regard the sun as a living deity, that the people that are acting in such an arrogant way to people like me today are acting out like an old program of the people that used to burn witches and go on their own crusades. And isn't it ironic, there are people calling for new crusades in our day and age using certain sacred symbols. And I'm here to help you deprogram, because they're taking advantage of people and DNA ancestry knowledge, and they're using it against them. And I feel like I can see it. I feel like I can feel it. They'd like to play it on me if it would work, but there's a part of me that has enough, I'm about to mention that bad word now, diversity, it almost seems to keep the program back. And I believe now, as I approach 40 years old and our world becomes very frightening, that I believe that is the truth. That we are starting to see through the program, through the lies. And so as you hear people talk about the sun, whether it's going to increase in activity and solar ambient radiation, thus its effect on the earth, look at how the sun has been looked at by the ancients. And look at how the people alive today disrespect how the ancients looked at the sun. And make the connection in our fallen world today. How advanced are we really? As we look now, at this statement here, because it's the small things in this book that really start to activate that inner gnosis within me, and that's the whole purpose of this. Not to make sure that you read a certain amount of words or pages, is that there's knowledge that's already innately within you that activates as you hear the words. So fire being the earthly counterpart of the sun, according to the Celts. Like the sun, fire sustains and destroys life. It also purifies, and growth springs anew from the ashes. After a bonfire, the Celts spread the ashes on their fields as fertilizer. The main fire ceremonies, and it lists a couple of different names for those, divided the year into summer and winter. They were meant to encourage the sun in its annual cycle and to persuade its return from its seasonal death. There is also a focus on a conscious connection to the sun and the sun returning. The sun returning. The sun returning. There's a constant focus on that throughout the world of the ancients. You've even heard Jordan Maxwell discuss the sun in such a manner, but not quite as deep. With all due respect to the work of Jordan Maxwell, there is a very deep story that most people are willing to take it with regards to the sun and its influence over human affairs. There's an ebook I wrote, by the way, at solarmaxnews.com, and you can download that for free. Not surprisingly, therefore, veneration of fire was a particular feature of the cold northern parts of Europe and Colorado. I mean, all throughout it in places like this, where there is a very strong Celtic overtone. In Celtic mythology, significant events frequently occur at festival times consistent with the themes of transformation, renewal, death, and rebirth. In the Book of Invasions, an Irish text compiled in the 12th century, the great Battle of Mag Tuired between the one group and the other, Fomorians, happened at Saman. So we have lots of legends. Now we have a reference to a demon. Also at Saman met his death, and Guan left Arthur's court to seek the Green Knight. Stories associated with Beltane are nearly always about overcoming the enchantment of the other world. An example is the return of Rion's baby, Bryderi, which has been stolen by a clawed demon. And so, you're probably wanting to know more, and I'm sure there's a lot of interesting books. But I'm going to try to keep continuing, just give you these cliff notes of insight into a world some of us have never been told. But we often, come across movies, things like Lord of the Rings, that activate things within us Again, in other videos, though, I talk about how the system, knows what's in you, Jedi. And they work to use it against us to enslave us to this matrix through their radicalization programs. Watch the direction the people go between now and 2019 and the year 2100. And remember my name, because I'm warning you. The symbols are being brought out to send us in weird directions. Let's return to the text. Identify it and expose it and help others set themselves free. It will help you. It will help me. It will help us all be free when we help each other. Animal imagery. Animals were revered by the Celts for the strength, speed, fertility, and so on, and both wild and domesticated animals feature symbolically in Celtic mythology. The bull is seen as a symbol of power and wealth. Now, I told you I had a dream of a bull coming up to see me. How do I know that was directly related to Vishnu? It's not limited to Vishnu or Hindu mythology, activating on the dad's mother's side of the DNA, which goes to East India. Yet I look at the bloodline within me of East India, and it connects with the Celtic bloodline within me, and then boom, there's a common similarity with the bull theme. Say, what? A bull theme? From the east to the west? As we continue. The pagan Celts adorn their metalworks and coins with depictions of animals, often highly stylized and hidden amid complex patterns. And I showed my little totem animal that I picked up from the Goodwill. That's Native American, but see, animal power, animal totems, spirit animals overlay. And in another recording, we'll go over the Arctic, the spirituality of the people of the Arctic, and it is deep, especially with the veneration of the Supreme Creator. I'm going to be brief with some of the names of the pagan Celts. With a lot of the specific names of the deities, I'm going to be brief for now because I'm mostly focused on symbols, the sun, the battle of good and evil, the Supreme Creator, and the origins of man. And also periods in time in which women were venerated. Ancient goddess religions, but also highlighting where there was sacrifice. So we're going to talk about Odin later. We're going to talk about some of the dark sides in which some of the things could emerge again in this day and age of never-ending wars, where they're using religions to go against religions and perhaps even entities that are behind some of these bloodlines that are clashing right now in a sea of blood. But why? Why? Is there a reason they want to create a sea of blood shed for someone or something? We will continue in this free flow and reading to ask the most important questions of our day and age. Epona was an important goddess of the continental Celts, commemorated in more surviving sculpture and inscriptions than any other early goddess. Her name means great mare, and she is usually portrayed on horseback, sitting side saddle, and she's seen with a bird, a dog, and a fowl. Important to Britain by the Romans, and was the only Celtic deity to be cited in the Roman pantheon. She was popular with the Roman cavalry. She was associated with husbandry and fertility, and shrines were made in stables for her worship and favor. In Britain, her cult merged with those of Macha and Rion. A picture here of a monolith with Celtic inscriptions. Earlier this year, I showed you, or last year, images of the rocks in Colorado, where it's almost as if a story is being told through the rocks. Somehow, some way, I can't explain to you how this is happening and how this played a role in me kind of activating those other parts of my dormant DNA on the mother side. But it happened. From me looking at photographs, I didn't visit the sites. Photographs sent by Bill in the San Luis Valley. That's how powerful the potential of consciousness waking up is right now for some of us. To be merely exposed to words and photographs through the internet, as much as we talk about the dark side of it, oh my God, does it have like an unlimited potential on another level to assist us in our wake-up process. And I'm going to be focused more on that optimistic side of this medium, as opposed to the lower world dark side that we have also been aware of. We need to work on taking things much higher. gods of the pagan Celts. From the Romans, we get a simplistic interpretation of Celtic religion, which reduces the abundance and variety of Celtic deities to a convenient system modeled on their own. Hence, the Celtic god is equated with Mercury, Bridget with Minerva, and so on. So it talks about the Celts and their information being absorbed by the Romans. So we have, think about this, it's very much like Hinduism in that many gods associate with the most important aspects of life, such as, and they're listing there for the Celts, warfare at the top, hunting, fertility, healing, good harvest, and so on. In much greater numbers, there were local, tribal, or family deities. Certain gods were associated with particular places, such as sacred groves, remote mountains, and lakes. It talks about Cernovos. Now, Cern, like today, CERN, the name of the deity is Cern Nuvos, a principal god among the pagan Celtics. His name means the horned one, and he was a lord of nature, animals, agriculture, prosperity, and the underworld. Now, side note, not all underworlds are described as hell in mythologies, and not all horned deities are actually bad dudes in the world of mythologies. And so we're not here to worship things, we're here to study, learn the names of some of these pagan deities and what they were originally associated with in order to understand many dynamics of our fallen world today. We're trying to find our way home. And it's not a geographical place or a homeland for ethnicity on the planet. No, we're trying to find our place home. The real home. Where some could say that Earth is the real hell. So the Horned One, a lord of nature, animals, and agriculture, prosperity, and the underworld, is portrayed with a man's body and the antlers of a stag. He adopts a characteristic Buddha posture, and he wears or holds the sacred torque in one hand and a ram-headed serpent in the other. And I believe that Pan is also discussed, and that might be specifically on the Norse side of things, and I'm flipping through this chapter. Okay, it would actually take 3 hours to go through this reading. So I'm going over, again, headers and cliff notes. Just understand the architecture of this history that we have. Heroes. The heroes dominate Irish literature. It gives a couple of names. In Britain, only the Arthurian legends achieved such popularity. Among the lesser heroes, women were as prominent as men. Particularly, as a particular story shows, in the theater of love and war. And there's a pattern in the lives of Celtic heroes that can be seen. Stories of their unusual conception and birth. Their afflictions. How they got their names. How they proved themselves. Their loves, ordeals, battles, quests, and death. One of these heroes had 3 fathers. There's a lengthy cycle of tales connected to a particular hero or group of heroes. And so it's like a long story that's being told. And I haven't read the full Tolkien Lord of the Rings, but that sounds like he was tapping into something. And he did say that he basically was listening to the sound of or the voice of an angel or somebody or something, maybe a little elf. Something maybe was channeling into him. Who knows? But the story behind J.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit is very interesting. The mythological cycle. Among the Irish texts is a collection of stories which includes the Book of Invasions and the History of Places. Both books were compiled in the 12th century. And I'm going to make a note here, and I mentioned this in previous videos, the idea of a renaissance of knowledge between the 10th century and 12th century. Also periods that came to a close for others like the Hopis. And there was like a period in which there was innovation, but also evacuation. So like a high of one energy of producing knowledge, and then also other major shifts that changed migration patterns when the climate changed. And a lot of this stuff like coming together. Look at today, changes taking place within the climate. Some say hotter, some say cooler. I focus on the sun. And then we look at the changes within the human species, changes within our culture, changes within our consciousness, changes within human migratory patterns, and the people that make wars over such. And the people that make wars over such, using sacred symbols. The coming of Lu. Nuada, the one-handed leader, was holding a great feast at Tara when a young man appeared at the gate, challenging the youth, identifying himself as Lu, son of Sion. And it's a longer story. A longer story and a longer legend. We're actually going to move forward to light and enlightenment. The Celts believed that they were divine forces at work in all aspects of nature. I happen to believe everything happens for a reason. And they perceived the sun, wow, as the most important natural phenomena, the sun. So it's in the history of today's redhead on an ancestral level to be aware of the sun. This is not something that should come foreign to the humans that are on the earth, that are being led into particular psyops and being told to not look at certain things. Being told that all things labeled pagan are worshiping Lucifer. And the propaganda continues and continues and continues. And before you know it, you're going to be in your last 10 physical years on earth, and you're going to have to face, like, did you do your work when you were on earth to learn about this reality? Or did you fuck it all away on Netflix? No disrespect intended, but I'm just trying to unplug you. Take no offense, but that's why you're here. That's the only reason why you're here. Even if you think you're a hater, you still know you're here to be unplugged by something. You don't know what and you don't know when, but you know it's possible. You know that I'm capable because you know that it's happened before. That's why you come back, despite the things that you don't like to hear on this channel. But over time, you will come to a greater level of understanding as to who I am, the things that I speak of, and how it all connects and is relevant to your life, whatever your ethnicity is. I would recommend that you strongly consider deprogramming. And what does it mean to deprogram beyond the lies of this world? Maybe it does lie in looking at the ancient world, in which women were respected more, and the sun was respected more, and men were respected more, and life was respected more. And the four elements and all these things made much more sense than our fallen world of smartphone worship and fornication. Returning to our reading. The Celts believed that there were divine forces at work in all aspects of nature, and they perceived the sun as the most important natural phenomena. Not only do they see it as the source of life and the promoter of fertility, but also a healing force and a comfort for the dead. A comfort for the dead? I'll tell you what, if I pass away, we should not be afraid of when it comes knocking. When death comes knocking, we shall not fear the doorway. I'll tell you one thing. There are people out there telling you to fear the light that are also promoting illusions of separation. I take note. I take note. Today in this fallen world of supposed psychic protection teachers and people that are supposedly help us escape the matrix, they're in their illusions of separation. Some of them are speaking in race war theology. And they're going to tell me not to go to the light? I'll tell you what, I go over, I pass over, I see that sun, I'm going straight for it. Return of the sun and a return of Alex Ansary to the sun. I mean, these are the things that I think about while being snowed in for weeks and weeks and weeks. Maybe we'll do a little synthwave free flow to my ebook at solarmaxnews.com soon. The Irish god is associated with the sun. Irish god Lu, or Luke, L-U-G-H, and the sky. His name means the shining one, and he is one of the most important of the Celtic gods. He was a master of all the arts and crafts. He brought the light in the form of enlightenment with him, and from the other world. From the other world. So this was the introduction of the idea of a single God. with many skills, and second, he created a new order of deities who drove out the degenerate primal beings and brought knowledge and order to the land. He became king of the Tuatha De Danann, the people of the light. He drove out the artless Fomorians, and he wanted to follow the great Ulster hero Cuchulainn. Lugh Welsh's equivalent is Lugh the Bright One of the Skillful Hand. The next section is feasting. Recurring themes in Celtic mythology are the otherworld feast and the feast where dramatic events take place. And it seems to be the stories and mythologies of life continuing and being reborn as a butterfly. The wooing of Etain, Etain, the most beautiful woman in Ireland. Oh, it sounds like an ex-coworker. Married Midhir, a god of the other world, who lived in the barrow of Brileth. I can't even get into. I just, there's been like an interesting connection though that some redheaded women have had with me over the years, a deeper level of empathy, and I suspect that it's happening through the biological imperative of us having a strong genetic kinship on the mother's side. And there could be something very specific where a family line spread outward. And a lot of us are connected, but we're taught that we're not connected through something as simple as skin tone shade, where there's so much more to blood chemistry and brain chemistry and behavioral dispositions. And so, like, so much of what we're being told right now about ourselves is an absolute lie. And the people don't seem to realize that. They think that they've actually evolved to a certain level of figuring things out finally for the first time. No, I think they dumb fucked up. It's like sometimes I wonder, it's literally, this is another video, but it's about helping people rise above the fear of the sun returning. Because that's what they're teaching people. The fear of the EMPs/solar flare event. People responding with fear. I never intended to bring knowledge about the sun to promote fear. This may be our only liberator from the devil of this world and its satellite network systems of mind control. Going back to the reading. Yes, you need to subscribe to this channel. You have not heard positions like mine anywhere. And there's a reason why you don't hear people speak of me favoritively or in a positive light. Only negative in some cases. Some do, but it's actually safer for people that they don't speak highly of me, that they watch their back, that this is very real what we're involved in and what we're spoke. This is not collecting baseball cards. When you add people on social media, interact with people on social media, like this is the real world now, where they use technology to watch us, to find out those that know, those that can see, and those that are more likely to be retained as their slaves. The brown bull of Uster. The Morrigan. That's another section. The supreme Celtic goddess of war. She stalked battlefields, filling warriors with fury and picking over the corpses of the fallen. She had the power of prophecy, and she was a shapeshifter, assuming the form of a crow or a raven. And the stories continue. The Morrigan was a threefold deity, and she features in the Irish legends either as herself or in the guise of one of her subsidiaries. Now, the idea of flying spirit creatures featuring shapeshifters traveling the land is a theory that has been proposed to explain why similar symbols and architecture and teachings have been found around the world. It's through flight. And this includes Thoth, which we will get to, the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, and Hermes, the teachings, and returning to the idea of Vishnu, supreme deity in Hindu mythology, flying on a dragon or some sort of a bird called Garuda. And so it is the connection with the flying element, the flying spirit, transferring these ideas throughout the planet. And it's interesting. That's interesting because birds also carry seeds, which can grow mighty oak trees. It gets into decapitation here. They're pretty into it. Decapitating their war victims was an act of triumph and kept the heads as trophies and offered them up to the gods in temples. Remember, old friend Gunner, Wilson High School, Portland, Oregon, wearing the head hunter's shirt. It's a little mascot thing for the Wilson wrestling team. And even then, I knew, without knowing mythology, they were tapped into mythology. They were tapped into the berserkers. There's things that are light and dark in our past, and some things people had to do to survive then, we don't necessarily have to maintain that. Some of the stuff that was done back in the day. Some people, though, they know what's in our DNA. And they know that we know what they want to bring back today. Through the bombardment of images, as if we are literally transporting in a time machine back to old Europe in the 13th century. But keep in mind, they want to take us back, take us back. Take us back, make the Dark Ages great again. Say, what? It's like, you don't have to go there. You can tap into your heritage. It's okay to be whatever you are. And these sacred symbols are within you. The path to the ultimate truth and place of power lies within. It is literally in your DNA code. Unless, of course, you're an android. Then, of course, your code may be something else. But the question is, aren't they trying to make us androids? Aren't they trying to take us away from anything remotely close to remembering who we are? Aren't they trying to poison our minds and poison our spirits and poison our relationships with each other so that we forget who we are and we lose access to the knowledge? So we lose connections with other friendships and people because they're different, so we won't learn at an accelerated rate? Because we learn at an accelerated rate when we trade, when we cooperate, when we talk with each other instead of war with each other. There's an acceleration of trading of books and ideas and knowledge, and that's what they want to shut down. Why? Because this world is a prison planet for souls. And they're not interested in letting us just walk up out of here without a fight. And the real fight is within our consciousness. It's within ourselves. The archons are within, one could say. The battle is all around us and within us. You could start at one end of the polarity and find yourself at the other. Giants. You're looking forward to this one. Giants. So we definitely see a big parallel between the Celtic and the Norse mythology. Giants occur in Celtic mythology in several forms. Heroes, such as the Irish Finn MacCool or the Welsh Bron, are so great that they are pictured as giants. Some giants are instrumental in the deeds of heroes, whose sword was one of the items that Coleridge had to steal from the hands of Olwen. Other issue challenges like Colrad Mock so-and-so, the remainder are either foolish and gentle, or they exist for weaker men to vanquish. Giantesses are featured in Celtic mythology, so the role that giants played in the past is viewed different ways. Sometimes villains, sometimes heroes. Maybe there were some that were genetically engineered that did the right thing. They were genetically engineered to maybe play out a role, and maybe they chose to go against it. What was the flood? What about Atlantis? I don't have all the answers now, but again, this is the direction that we're going. The salmon of knowledge. And so we have a myth of Phoenicius, the bard, had been fishing for 7 years in the hope of catching Fintan, the fabled salmon of knowledge. It had been prophesied that whoever tasted the salmon would be blessed with boundless knowledge, and that person would be called Finn. I had a friend in Portland called Finn, helped me get a job at the Benson Hotel, and I'm already side-talking. And it's like, do we have certain connections, though, with people? And we think that we're so different from them because of our bone structure, the way our hair forms, the way our eyes vibrate. Then we're going to wonder, why did we have that friend back in the day? And maybe for a while, there was a disconnect because we went different directions because the programming didn't stick the same in the post 9/11 world. We didn't all go in the same direction. Some went in the opposite direction of the truth. But was there a time in which more of us were together? Was there a time in which more of us sat in peace and loved one another and had children together? before all of this manufactured divide that they brought to our world and blamed on innocent people? The answer is yes, there was a time. Divine lovers. Love is a central theme in many Celtic myths. It may be between two supernatural characters or a god and a human being. Often it involves three people: handsome youth, a beautiful girl or woman, and a successful suitor or a husband who may be much older. And there's more stories. The divine love in marriage is depicted as an image found in the archaeological evidence for pagan Celtic religion. Divine couples were venerated in inscriptions and in sculpture, where they were seen as symbolic of harmony, health, wealth, protection, and abundance. So, today they'll call you a misogynist if you are waiting for a divine counterpart to your higher nature. And that's what's so sad. Our world is so fallen that it's not open to criticism of the lower, carnal, warlike side of ourselves, and does not take criticism of the fallen world well. It turns it around on us. Why are you judging evil, they say? Why are you judging the lower world? It ain't about gender. It ain't about certain other things. It's about wanting more than what's available because of what this world has done to most men and women, women and men. Continuing, animals, various creatures, both wild and domestic, appear in Celtic mythology. White horses is significant for the other world. We have battling bulls, Ulster, and Connaught. We also see the bull significant with Wall Street. Did Wall Street use the bull? Why do they call it a bull run? I didn't even intend to even ask that question. See, they worship the bull run. Get a bull run versus the bearish. What's the bear symbolize? The bearish versus the bull. Animals played a very important part in the life of the Celts, and this is reflected in their storytelling. Horses, for example, were prestigious animals, revered for their beauty, speed, bravery, and sexual vigor. So yeah, I grew up on 40 acres with multiple horses, although I didn't grow up learning to ride at a young age, although I fell off the horse a few times, got bucked off. As such, they became a symbol of the warrior elite. What better animal to carry a hero to the other world? Cattle provided the Celts with most of their everyday needs: meat, dairy, leather, bone, and horn for implements. You know, it's in our nature to be off the grid, but I bet you already knew that or suspected. Hunting was a sporting and also a prestige activity. And there's a spiritual bond between the hunter and the hunted, just like Native American cultures. So, to highlight, there are some people that would be disrespectful to some Caucasians for their own seeking in certain areas, but it's in our heritages around the world to be native to the earth. These modern ways, the last few centuries in particular, septic systems, other things, are so new. And even the last, nation states, last few thousand years. But before that, there was a deeper connection to the elements and hunting for survival, protecting the women, and the women recognizing good men. Now it's all machines. It's all machines now. It's all machines. But what happens when that machine goes down? We are coming back to this. So, early Welsh myths. And this is where we start venturing towards the sword and the stone. And I may hold some of this off for next time, being that I'm running on battery power. I'm going to read a little bit more of the other world. Before they became Christian, the Celts had no conception of heaven or hell as a reward for punishment for their earthly lives. They thought that rebirth into the afterlife was automatic. So firm was their belief in the afterlife that they would put off paying debts until they met there. This accounts for the heroic way they threw themselves into battle with no apparent fear of death. The other world of Celtic myth is an invisible realm of gods, spirits, fairies, and giants, and it takes many forms. Sometimes it is a heaven which entices dreamers such as Oisin, and sometimes it is purgatory. When they were driven underground, the Tuatha De Danann lived in comfort, which was in reality prehistoric burial chambers. The Fomorians before them, however, were doomed to dwell damply beneath lakes and seas. The divide between the visible and invisible worlds is not clearly defined in Celtic myth. Now, again, watch the politicians of today's day and age say, we will dominate the realms of the unseen. Yeah. Tell me again, what did Trump just say at the end of one of his recent... They play on ancestry while sacrificing their own people. Just because they're speaking in tongue and showing you symbols, no. Things are not as they seem. Things are not as they seem. They can even manufacture someone, bring him out on the world stage to seem like the return of the king because of what's in the blood, what's in the DNA. I was speaking like this before I picked up the book on mythology to go deeper into the knowledge of the ancient Celts. Now that I read this and go forward, my own free-flow rantings to you about how they even control you through symbols seem that much more clear and validated. When we talk about the realms of the unseen, I talk to you about the realms of the unseen and resisting those malevolent forces that are trying to lead us astray, specifically to keep us in this world, so we stay in a certain type of other world or underworld without the true ascension. Seers inhabit both realms, while heroes are frequent other world visitors. There's a lot of references to getting knowledge about hunting and getting resources and being blessed with luck from the other world with regards to such. In our modern day and age, that could translate to other things, including monetary, for better or for worse. Monetary is energy, even if it is through PayPal, through people that are donating that are actually, in some cases, very distant relatives, without any of us even knowing it or having the knowledge to even document it, but knowing that there's something there below the surface and why you're here. Also why I'm here off the grid going, oh shit, look at the world. Oh shit. I got to spend my last year speaking to you about the greatest truths that I can find in writing. Fuck these people's wars. The real war is spiritual. The real invasion is a spiritual one. The real victory is breaking free the pillars of the gates that hold us to this world. So the Lord of the Underworld is also discussed. And as we look at this, again, we look for things that sound like the archons in our world, also known as the jinn and the demons. Otherworld voyages. The Imram, I-M-R-A-M. Notice M before Ram. Rama is significant in Hindu mythology. So sometimes we see words used interchangeably or similar. The Imram, or voyage, is a class of Old and Middle Irish narrative in which travelers explore an otherworld. Sounds like shamanism. Usually it is a wondrous island or islands in the Western Ocean. Typically, the 7th or 8th century Imram, Bran, the voyage of Bran, otherworld goal is the land of the women, where there is no grieving, winter, or want. I think I've dreamed of this place. The real free love spot, I thought that was Planet B, my next incarnation. After many... Oh, lots of sex, the next incarnation. After many adventures, he returns home to find that a considerable time has passed in his absence. Ooh, alien abduction. His family and friends are long dead, and his voyage is remembered as an ancient story. Seers and sages. The most famous sage in Celtic mythology is Merlin, another person that has been very strong in our own modern culture, someone that I've wondered about. We can also see a parallel between Merlin and the character in Lord of the Rings. Arthur's mentor is Merlin. Let's see, go over here. This is where I'm going to have to wrap things up and come back with more when I can. When the sun of life comes out to charge the batteries. The most famous sage in Celtic mythology is Merlin, Arthur's mentor. There are many others, however. Gives a bunch of names. They were in contact with the other world, and they commanded tremendous respect. Many were druids, a name derived from the Celtic word for the oak, a sacred tree. It was forbidden for their secrets to be written down. Their knowledge was passed from one generation to the next in verse, which had to be memorized. Consequently, laws, histories, traditions, and magical formulas, which could take a novice up to 20 years to learn, died with them. Celtic saints. Christianity may have preserved Celtic mythology, albeit in a sanitized form, but it also incorporated mythological themes into its own traditions. In particular, it adopted stories of Celtic warriors and heroes as wondrous events in the lives of the saints. Saints could not excel in battle, of course, but they could perform miracles to help preach the word. The greatest number of miracles are attributed to St. Patrick. Many of these arise from a struggle against the Druids, who had most to lose by the spread of a new faith. Celtic illumination. Christianity helped to preserve Celtic mythology by adapting the legends as miraculous events in the lives of Celtic saints, such as St. Patrick, for example. Symbolic imagery involved animals and plants was also adopted. This imagery, expressed in the traditional, highly decorative style developed by the pagan Celts, resulted in the magnificent illuminated manuscripts produced for Christian missionary work in the 7th and 8th centuries CE. Arthur recurs in Welsh, Irish, and other Celtic mythologies. He was probably a warrior living in Britain in the late 5th century, famed for resisting the Saxons. By the Middle Ages, however, he and his knights were firmly embedded with myth, sharing many of the attributes of Finn Mac Cool and the Fana. And I think Alex Jones represents a lot of the Saxon symbolism as well as Roman, if you look very carefully. So they are not there to play a role at all, looking at the real history even of Europe, as the saviors of other white men, for example, and white women. It's propaganda. They're using the people. They're setting the people up for a fall. You'll get the truth here, whether you're into that or not, right? You could say, oh, just stay on mythology. Don't tell us how it's being used against us in today's day and age. Are you serious? I will tell you how mythology is being used against you in the modern day and age. Also indicate to you ways in which maybe we can use it to set ourselves free by looking at the truthful aspect of it, by using the cross in the right form, not on some warrior crest shield, not in some act of blasphemy, attacking someone with a shield, hitting them upside their head, but going higher, beyond the physical, beyond the race war theology, beyond the political fighting, where people serve masters that literally are owned by the machine as their ancestral programming is hit with some sort of a button as they push their buttons, holding that DNA symbol in their body. Early references to Arthur appear in a Welsh poem in the 6th century, the writing of a British monk, and those of the Celtic historian Nennius of the 8th century. A 10th century Latin history of Wales lists his victories and his defeat at the Battle of Comlan. Arthurian romances. The origins of these are obscure. The Spoils of Onwan is a prototype for the Grail quest. Arthurian tales became popular in Irish literature because of the similarities with Finn Mac Cool and the Fanaid, but the Irish Arthur is a rapacious invader. It was Geoffrey of Monmouth who began the popular myth of King Arthur. His 12th century History of the Kings of Britain inspired the Norman poet Was, whose versions provided a more courtly setting and introduced the round table. So from here we find ourselves eventually to the Templars, I would say, and interject. Some of us have these things that are ancestry, and we're not taught. We're just taught, okay, these are the Illuminati and whatnot, and these are okay white people. And here you are now in 2019. It's like there's a deeper story behind all of this. And why the things are taking place today. So we have the Holy Grail quest, how that connects in with this. Now, it doesn't get as deep into that right here, but it does get into shapeshifters. The ability to change shape or to transform into another object or creature is common in Celtic mythology. The Morrigan, the terrifying Irish goddess of war, appears as a crow feeding off the bodies of fallen warriors. Merlin, of course, can also change his shape as well as that of others. He facilitates the union between Arthur's father, Uther, and Igraine, the wife of Gorlois, the Duke of Cornwall, by casting a spell to make Uther appear temporarily as Gorlois. So we're dealing with mind control here, shape-shifting, things of that nature, supernatural powers, shamanism. The next section, water. Perceived as both a creator and a destroyer of life, like the sun. And look at the connection between the sun and water. Lack of water and too much snow, not enough. And these contrasting images are reflected in the different tales told of Merlin's demise. Okay, so in one legend, Merlin is seduced by the scheming temptress, Nimue. She is the daughter of a British sea deity, Dylan. Sea deity, would that be the Loch Ness Monster? Nimue tricks Merlin into revealing the secrets of his magic. When she has learned all she can from him, she uses her knowledge to trap him forever in a cave. This is an example of the Celtic distrust of fairies and the dangers of associating too much with them. Oh boy, I'll hold my commentary here. So it's very, very interesting. So we're getting a lot of knowledge from this. In Arthurian myth, the Holy Grail is a mystical vessel sought by the Knights of the Round Table. The earliest stories of the Grail is told, difficult to enunciate this name, but it involves Sir Percival, who fails to find the Grail because he does not ask the right questions. Further stories have a succession of knights, including Lancelot, also failing. The only one deemed pure enough to succeed in the quest and to be taken up to heaven with the Grail is Galahad, Lancelot's son. Later versions allow more knights to achieve it, including Percival and Bors. Forerunners of the Grail quest may be found in older Celtic myth, in the Spoils of Onwan, an early Welsh poem. Arthur leads a disastrous expedition to Ireland to obtain a cauldron, one of the 13th treasures of Britain. A variant of this appears in the tale of Culhwch and Olwen, in which the cauldron numbers among the objects the hero must find with Arthur's help. Let's go up a little bit. Heroic quests. The most famous quest of all is the pursuit of the Holy Grail. There are many others among the Arthurian sagas. To win Olwen, Colewich sets off to find 39 objects. I'm about to turn 39 in a few days, on February 25th. He sets off to find 39 objects for her father, the giant. Yasbaden. Sounds like Yaldabaoth. The devil of this world in Gnostic lore, that is. Owan, inspired by Sinan, son of Gladono, goes on to search the castle of the fountain, and Peredur enters upon a large series of adventures to avenge the insult to a dwarf. Whatever the goal of the quest, whether divine or trivial, it is the journey itself which is the object of the story. Now, already as we approach completing this recording, we're dealing with escaping the Matrix, potentially. And what the real Holy Grail is. You could see mankind throughout history, including the Nazis, attempting to access certain levels of knowledge in order to use it on elements of the population, misusing the Hindu teachings, misusing what they found in Tibet as Himmler sought to build their narrative, using elements of mythology while twisting it. Now, I want you to pay attention between now and the year 2100 of the people that will emerge, trying to bring almost a spiritual movement to their ethno-state and more. They've already announced their intentions to do so. They're already using Norse mythology. They're already using Celtic symbols. And you need to understand and be told the truth about your origins. Your origins are less corrupted than the people that are alive today, saying that you are their tribe and vice versa. See through their lies. It's like the devil of this world brings to us many people that come to us in our own form, saying, follow me this way, as the Pied Piper continues. Why are they so confident? Why do they seem so well-funded, so well-organized? How does the evil of this world send us over the cliff in order to repeatedly entrap our soul into its grasp, into its etheric prison? How do we take this knowledge and set ourselves free? This is going to be our last section. Magic and enchantment. This is actually what attracted me the most out of this section. Celtic myths are full of magic, which fulfills a number of functions in the narrative. It is commonly used as a means of escape. Atan and Midir make their gateway from Ichodad's palace of swans, while Dimrod and Granin evade Finn's. I need a special class just to go over like all these words in mythology. I don't know that that's needed, right? But they make their getaway from Echochad's palace of swans, while Dirimod and Grain evade Finn's huntsmen by using, right, Ogus's magical cloak of invisibility. It is used to deceive, as in the cases of several individuals here. Sir Bartolic, who are magically transformed into unrecognizable giants for the beheading game. Heroes and ogres often have magical powers to confirm their greatness and power. Finn has the ability to see into the future, while Balor has a magic eye and his gaze is lethal. I'm going to pause here. Again, I said there's a very strong Celtic presence in Colorado. And there may be signs of an ancient civilization, including giants, and or at least ancient mythologies being carved into the rocks. Or if there is something to the idea of petrified giants, and you know where I'm going with this. You know where I'm going with this. We may be on top of the ancient world. And we may be affected also by the negativity of some of the fallen beings that are literally made up of some mountain regions or lands. What if certain mountains emanate a particular magnetism because the ancient giants and the ancient wars that were fought there? What if modern expressions of racism really have their roots in the ancient wars of the past and really have no real place in our world today for people seeking true consciousness and liberation from the devil of this world? trinities. The number 3 was sacred to the Celts. Knowledge was preserved in triadic verses, while in art, a common form is the triple face. Me, I'm obsessed with 3s and 1s. I'm telling you, folks, this ain't just some Illuminati thing. Some of you have no education about your own ancestry. And that's what makes it so crazy. All the superiority complexes. People don't even know their own ancestry. That knowing about things like 33 and 3s and 1s are not necessarily blood-drinking Masonic at its root and origin. My Lord. Like, you would think that I wouldn't have to explain this. I want to thank you guys for being supporters. And sign up on Patreon or donate in any way, shape, or form. PayPal is A-okay with me. I am very enthused about continuing this series. In mythology, mother goddesses are commonly represented in 3s. And the Morrigan is often represented by her terrifying sisters. It's like the Buddha had to look at Maya's daughters. Like, no, I'm good. I know it looks like some sweet pontang, but I'm here trying to meditate, yo. I'm not here trying to, like, be distracted by your shaky, shaky, shaky. So there's often this theme of people being tempted away from their spiritual path by things of that nature. And this is also consistent. Many Celtic romances, like that of Lancelot and, is it Guinevere? Been a long time since I've read that or seen that name. Love triangles, menage a trois. Sometimes one of the rivals is young and handsome, while the other is a oppressive husband or guardian. Interesting. So who knows? Maybe there's a reason why humans gravitate towards the menage a trois in a day and age where maybe modern Orthodox religions have kind of split us and put us into master-slave relationships. These are all things to consider, right? I hope the music flowed to a certain degree to where the information flowed, and the knowledge hopefully is coming in. When I come back on another day, although I'm going to have to return this book, we will go through the chapter on Norse mythology and the story of Odin, the one-eyed Allfather.